According to Dr. Raj Varma, Maharishi's uncle, Dr. Raj Varma, according to Dr. Raj Varma, Maharishi was born on January 12th, 1917. There is some evidence that he is older than that, but I cannot verify it. He was born in Jabalpur in central India. Dr. Varma said Maharishi's lineage is known to be among the most intelligent of India in India, and that his family was neither rich nor poor. After Gurudev accepted him as a rabbi, Maharishi discovered he was the youngest and lowest brahmachari on the totem pole. He hardly ever got the chance to see Gurudev. About 6 months after Maharishi became a brahmachari, Gurudev accepted the position of Shankaracharya of Jyotirmath. With his new duties, Maharishi got to see him even less. Without knowing it, Maharishi began to emulate the behavior of an earlier brahmachari, Rotakacharya, who was a brahmachari of Shankara. In order to get closer to Gurudev, Maharishi took on the responsibility of cleaning the floors, preparing the meals, doing the laundry. If Gurudev wanted a drink of water, Maharishi would drop the broom and say, "I will get it for him," and run off. There came a time of testing reactions. Maharishi has said that Gurudev would hardly ever ask him to do anything. So Maharishi would do some action and see what Gurudev's reactions would be. Then he would create another action and watch for Gurudev's reaction. In this way, over the next couple of years, he became so attuned with Gurudev that he sat as the master sat, spoke as the master spoke, and thought as the master thought. Gurudev entrusted Maharishi with the task of answering his personal correspondence. When he felt tired, he would ask Maharishi to answer the questions, and Gurudev would only sit silently while people came for his darshan. Maharishi was able to anticipate his every need before he expressed it. He even slept on the floor outside Gurudev's door in case his master might need anything during the night. One of the best ways to describe Maharishi is that he is divine love incarnate, and he focused all that love on Gurudev. Maharishi was not born into the Brahmin caste, therefore his master never made him a Swami. This is fortunate for us, because if he had been made a Swami, he would have been tied to tradition, and he would never have brought meditation out to the world. Gurudev did reward him, however. Maharishi was the most devoted disciple Gurudev had. In keeping with the Jyotirmad tradition of Shankaracharya, where devotion earns the highest rank, Maharishi alone received the wisdom of transcendental meditation from his master. Maharishi stayed in the Himalayas, living the life of a sannyasi, for some time after Gurudev passed. Then one day he had thought, "I should go to the Rameswaram temple, South India." It is such an unusual occurrence for a holy man to have a thought come unbidden, that he happened to tell a fellow saint about it. he was actually in he was living in Uttarkashi for that time, and he was staying at a basement in a house. Me, who is speaking, Fernando Baena, I was there in Uttarkashi in the house and in the place that Maharishi used to meditate. And there in Uttarkashi, it happened that there was a fellow saint also devoting to the life of a sannyasi. And this is the fellow saint this book is talking about. From the description, I believe this saint to be Tatwala Baba, says the book Tat, Tatwala Baba, but I cannot verify it. It was generally felt that any place outside Uttarkashi was a place of mud, so why go there? Why ever leave the Valley of the Saints? Anyway, the next day Maharishi saw this saint walking toward him. At first, he didn't recognize him because his hair, which usually dragged on the ground when he walked, had been cut. Then he recognized him by his walk. Maharishi went up to him and asked him why he had cut his hair. It is just one more thing to tie me to the past, was the answer. Maharishi thought about being tied to the past and decided to go to South India. He walked across the Indian subcontinent from Uttarkashi to the south, spent several weeks at the temple, and was on his way back to Uttarkashi when a stranger stopped him and said, "You appear to be from the Himalayas." Maharishi said, "Yes." The man said, "Do you speak?" It is not unusual to encounter Maharishi said, "Yes, but if you mean do I lecture? No." The man asked where he was staying. About 3 o'clock the same afternoon, the stranger knocked on Maharishi's door and announced that he had arranged 7 lectures for him at the local library and they wanted the titles of the lectures. And so it was that Maharishi became a lecturer. A prominent lawyer took Maharishi from town to town giving lectures in this way. He lectured for about 2 years and began teaching transcendental meditation to the people. In December of 1957, devotees of both Gurudev and Maharishi asked him how he would like to celebrate Gurudev's birthday anniversary. The result was the Grand Seminar of Spiritual Luminaries, which was held in Madras from December 29th to the 31st. It brought together saints from all over India as well as Gurudev's disciples, and 10 to the 15,000 people who wanted to enjoy the inspiration of such a gathering. Speaking on the third day, December 31st, Maharishi reviewed the successes of transcendental meditation he had seen in those he had taught in the last 2 years. He mentioned that he believed it could be possible to spiritually regenerate the whole world with such a technique. There was a sudden ovation that lasted several minutes from 15,000 people. During the ovation, Maharishi turned to the secretary of the seminar and asked if he could arrange to hold the facilities for one more day. The secretary told him he would. When the applause died down, Maharishi said, "When this is the response from Mother Nature on the thought of spiritually regenerating the world through this practice, we'll inaugurate a world movement. We'll inaugurate the spiritual regeneration movement here tomorrow evening." Again there was an ovation that lasted several minutes. The next evening, on January 1st, 1958, the spiritual regeneration movement was formally inaugurated. Maharishi left his beloved India, his chosen lifestyle as a sannyasi, and the holy society in which he lived in the Valley of the Saints to come out into the world and make the highest spiritual technique in existence available to Westerners. A man financed Maharishi's first plane ticket outside India. He was to go to Burma, and the plane landed and Maharishi got out. When the plane landed, he was greeted by over 100 Buddhist monks who were kneeling on the runway. An old and very highly respected monk had been telling them for over a year that on this day a great yogi from India would be coming to teach a technique for liberation. In this way, Maharishi slowly made his way from country to country until he reached the United States. It was there that his dream of spiritually regenerating the world began to take serious form. That was the doorway through which the world at last had access to the highest spiritual technique. It is not unusual to hear a teacher of a technique say that his is the very highest. Such statements are usually taken with a grain of salt. But in this case, there are at least 3 masters who are not affiliated with the Shankaracharya order who agree. That gives this statement great credibility. Several years ago, a friend of mine attended a lecture by Swami Lakshmanju, who was a world-famous master and was the head of Kashmir Shaivism. What the Swami said in his lecture sounded to my friend a lot like transcendental meditation, so he asked, "How does your teaching differ from the meditation taught by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi?" His answer was, "Maharishi's technique starts where my teaching ends. And it goes from there to infinity." Then he added, "Maharishi is the greatest saint to walk the earth in 10,000 years." That is quite an endorsement from someone not affiliated with your practice. It is much like a car salesman saying, "If you want the very best car in the world, go to the dealership up the street." Tatwala Baba, whom I have talked about before, was considered to be the highest evolved man on earth while he was alive. At a Kumbh Mela, he was asked by a Western reporter working for a major American news magazine what he thought of the various Indian holy men traveling through America teaching their various techniques. He didn't say anything bad about any of them, but neither did he give a glowing report. When he was specifically asked about Maharishi, he said, almost word for word what Swami Lakshmanju had said. He is the greatest saint to appear in more than 100 centuries. Before he met Maharishi, Charlie Lutz and his wife Helen were members of one of the schools of the mysteries. You do not join a school of the mysteries. You have to be selected by them and approached. If you accept, you are told where to appear and at what time. You sit and listen to the discussion. It is one on one with the teacher. You are not allowed to take notes or ask questions. Just observe as much information as possible. Then you are given some direct experiences of the validity of the lesson. For instance, say 1 week, the lesson is on reincarnation. You sit and listen to the discussion about the process of birth and death, the process between death and rebirth, and you try to remember as much as possible about the lesson. During the following week, you will have 3 or 4 experiences of past lifetimes where you are vividly there in one of your past lives. Somehow, these experiences are brought on by the masters associated with the School of the Mysteries. All your senses are functioning. You remember having had the experience before, and you witness it along with your thoughts from that lifetime, but also with today's understanding. You are given direct experience of what has been taught. The following week, you go back for another lesson. Charlie and Helen were initiated by Maharishi when he came to the United States. In fact, Charlie was the first person Maharishi initiated in the continental United States. Charlie was a member of the mystery school at the time. One day, he happened to mention to his teacher at the School of the Mysteries that he had learned how to meditate from His Holiness Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. The reply was, "Don't pay much attention to him. He's just another traveling Indian." Charlie mentioned this to Maharishi, who said, "Your teacher has to be connected with masters on the inner plane. And ask your teacher to contact the hierarchy and ask them who, on earth, has the highest spiritual teaching. We will go by what he says." Charlie delivered the message. It was not very happily received, but he was told to come back. When Charlie came back, his teacher said, "I give you leave from the School of the Mysteries. Your Maharishi has the highest spiritual teaching in creation. You are to follow before. You are to follow before was considered to be the highest evolved man on earth while he was alive. At a Kumbh Mela, he was asked by a Western reporter working for a major American news magazine. No, no, no. Your Maharishi has the highest spiritual teaching in creation. You are to follow him. I have been told this story by Charlie on numerous occasions during the years I have been associated with. So, there are at least 3 masters not affiliated with this technique who proclaim that it is the highest spiritual teaching and that Maharishi is the greatest saint to walk the earth in the last 10,000 years. A saint is different from an avatar, such as Christ or Buddha or Krishna. These are divine incarnations. The obvious question is, if these saints realize there is a teaching higher than theirs, why don't they practice it? The end goal of all spiritual teachings is the same: spiritual enlightenment. If the goal of a traveler was to reach New York, he could choose many ways of going. He could walk, drive by car, or fly by plane. If such a traveler drove or walked to New York and then met someone who had flown, he would probably admit that flying is the better way to travel, but he has already reached his destination, so he would be unlikely to get on board an airliner. Then again, there are people who are enthusiasts of a particular means of travel. There are bicyclists, for instance, who are interested both in reaching their destination and their particular means for doing so, even though they know it is not the fastest or easiest way. By the middle of the summer in 1959, Maharishi announced his plan for the first international convention of the spiritual regeneration movement to be held at Sequoia National Park in California. At that convention, Maharishi announced that it was his goal to teach meditation to 1% of the people in the world. An engineer attending the convention took out a slide rule and made some quick calculations. He had considered how long it takes to initiate one person and how many people there were in the world. From this, he concluded it would take several thousand years to initiate 1% of the people. Maharishi's goal was too impractical. Maharishi's simple reply was, I multiply myself. This was the beginning of the effort to train initiators. There was a discussion about where would be the best location to build an academy to train teachers. Los Angeles was suggested as well as various other cities. Finally, Charlie Lutz pointed out, if I were a teacher and someone asked, where did you learn to teach meditation? What would have the most impact? To say I learned in Los Angeles or to say I was trained in the Himalayas in India. That decided the matter. Plans were drawn up to construct an academy on the banks of the Ganges in northern India. The first SRM center in the US was in Los Angeles on 6th Street. It had high cathedral ceilings. Beulah Smith was the first initiator trained by Maharishi, and she did all of the initiations. Beulah Smith, Beulah Smith, in Spanish, Beulah Smith. When someone had trouble ascending, Beulah would send them to Helen Lutz. Maharishi used to tell people to go to Helen if they were having trouble, and she would work her magic on them. About 1959, the center moved to Santa Monica Boulevard, where it stayed for several years. Maharishi had asked Charlie Lutz to drive him around from place to place. Eventually, they went around the world together 4 times, setting up centers and initiating people. Centers of meditation were established in every free country in the world. Charlie followed up by going to each center and making sure everything ran smoothly. The worldwide movement started from Los Angeles. Dr. Jack Hislop was the first president of SRM. As his movement picked up more followers and gained more momentum, Maharishi began to attract the attention of the press. He was once asked by a Los Angeles reporter what he intended to accomplish with his meditation technique. He said, "I will bathe the world in love." Even today, this response seems more poetic than prophetic to most. I happen to believe it was literally true. When Maharishi left Los Angeles, Charlie took him to San Francisco, Oregon, Washington, Canada, New York, and Texas. Centers were set up in each place. Helen was busy teaching the puja to prospective new initiators. She also coordinated activities in all of the new centers that were set up as Maharishi and Charlie traveled from one location to another. Helen arranged for each center to send 20% of their income to the Los Angeles Center, and she saw to it that each center was run properly. In the first year, they were able to send Maharishi $75,000, which financed his world tour. That is how the worldwide spiritual regeneration movement got its start. Since that time, Maharishi has trained hundreds of teachers and is responsible for over 4.5 million people learning how to meditate throughout the world. What is the impact of all of this? Much, much more than most people, even most meditators, realize. Consider the short term benefits of meditation. They include greater intelligence, greater energy, greater happiness, peace of mind, better health, more creativity, the reduction of stress, etc. What other technique can offer these results? There is no one. Universities and colleges can offer greater education, but not one of them can actually increase anyone's intelligence. Creativity can be trained, but no one knows how to increase it. Peace of mind seems to depend on a person's external situation, which changes from time to time. For some people, lasting peace of mind can come from a religious conviction, but some are not religiously inclined. Only meditation can produce lasting peace of mind for everyone. Greater states of health can be obtained temporarily by proper diet, drugs, exercises, etc. Only meditation can produce lasting healthy effects at any age. Stress is the single greatest problem facing humanity. According to Dr. Murray Banks, more than half of all the occupied hospital beds are inhabited by mental patients. Many of the diseases afflicting to other patients are either caused or aggravated by stress. That means stress takes a heavier toll on humanity than all wars, all diseases, and all accidents added together. The release of stress cannot be achieved through psychotherapy or drugs or hypnosis. If it could, there wouldn't be so many mental patients. The most of any the most any of these methods can produce is a superficial feeling of less stress, which is only temporary and is usually a cover up of the problem rather than a real remedy. It is much like taking Novocaine for a toothache. The pain is gone, but the problem is still there. In short, no exercise, no drug, no therapy, no diet, no philosophy, and no religion can produce all the results that meditation does. These effects of meditation are so commonplace, and the scientific research done on them in the last 30 years is so extensive that no one disputes them anymore. Then there is the long term benefit of meditation, spiritual enlightenment. Maharishi has said that once a person steps onto the path of transcendental meditation, the longest possible time it can take to reach enlightenment is 7 lifetimes. Most will make it in 2 or 3, and some will make it this lifetime. That probably seems like a lot until you realize how many lives you have already lived. Shankara, in his crest jewel of discrimination, says, "It is hard for any living creature to achieve birth in human form. Strength of body and will are even harder to obtain. Purity is harder still. Harder even than this is the desire to live a spiritual life, and an understanding of the scriptures is hardest of all. As for discrimination between the Atman and the non-Atman, direct perception of the Atman itself, continuous union with Brahman, and final liberation, this cannot be obtained except through the merits of 100 billion well-lived lives. Emphasis at main. 100 billion well-lived lives. The best educated guess we have of the number of enlightened people in the world today is 50, which means less than 1 out of every 100 million people is enlightened. But Maharishi has planted the seeds of enlightenment in over 4.5 million people. Someday those seeds will bear fruit. If what he said is true, about the length of time it takes a transcendental meditator to reach enlightenment, within the next 300 or 400 years, there will be 1 million or more enlightened people on earth. That's 20,000% increase over now. No master, no avatar, no other person in all of recorded human history is responsible for a change that great. War will become impossible for thousands of years. Disease, which is caused by being out of harmony with natural law, will become an historic curiosity. Life on earth will be immeasurably better. He will have bathed the world in love. He just may be the greatest saint to ever walk the earth. He most richly deserves an honored place in the history of the Shankaracharya order. I treasure every second I have spent with him. Jai Gurudev Maharishi. And the next chapter is pronouncing Sanskrit names. And we will have a glossary of terms after this chapter. And with the glossary of names, we will finish this audiobook.